ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। My humble salutation at the feet of Bhagavan Shri Ramakrishna Dev, Holy Mother Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekanand. My humble pranam to revered Swami Atmarupananji Maharaj, who loves me from a very long time, from the time I joined. It was incidentally that I joined at Belumat, and at the time he was in the training center. So, because of the other brahmacharis who were close to me, since that time we have been in very good touch, and he came at our invitation when we had International Youth Conference twice in Baroda. Both the times he accepted our accepted our invitation. So we have been in regular touch. So I'm very happy that I'm starting my USA tour this time with Houston. This is my third visit. I think Swapna Chaudhary is the authority on that because she had been inviting me. So 2010 first visit my USA, I didn't come here because Swami Vivekananda did not come here. But second and third, 2013 and 2015, both the visits I had been here. And this is my fourth visit to USA. And prima facie it is because for the Parliament of World's Religion. Last visit also was because of the 6th Parliament of World Religion at Salt Lake City from 15 to 19 October. It is in this connection that I had come to USA and then I had come to Houston. Similarly, this time also, I have basically come for participating in the Parliament of World, 7th Parliament of World's Religion at Toronto, 1 to 7 November. As just now you heard, Revered Maharaj also was with me. So we had together a panel discussion on Vedanta for, in fact, he has been now called Justice Swamiji, because so many lectures, he talked on Vedanta for justice and there were so many questions on Vedanta and justice. So he has been called now Justice Swamiji. I talked on Vedanta for happiness and peace and all that. And on second, for the first time in the history, Parliament of World Religion celebrated Diwali and Hindu Heritage Month celebration because the Canadian government declared November month as the Hindu Heritage Month, and Parliament of World Religion celebrated Hindu Heritage Month and also Diwali celebration on 2nd November, and there I was told to give the keynote address on Hinduism and Swami Vivekananda. So basically it was for that I had come, and since so many invitations were pending, so I thought all the way coming to US, Canada. So the lectures are there. I start from Houston, go to Boston, the lectures in Harvard and Tufts University, from there to Chicago to lectures, from there to St. Louis, and then to New York, New Jersey, Long Island. 29th I return to India. So it's a very hectic tour, and just now I am coming rightly from the airport. Just 5 minutes back I have reached. Maybe just in time I have been able to reach. I am very happy, thanks to Sharad Bhai, who took the right lane, expressway, so that I could, because we two of us, so HOV we could take and we have reached in time. Only you have to excuse me because right from the time I landed in Toronto, from the very hot climate of Gujarat right out to Toronto, the extreme cold climate, night going minus, even now 2-3 degrees Celsius, and it was raining when I arrived. So right from the time I landed in Toronto, my throat got choked up. So I got cold and cough, a little fever. With that, I am playing the game for so many days. So you have to excuse me, my voice will not be that clear. So I am very happy to meet all of you, dear friends and dear devotees. Very happy to meet you once again, and I am grateful to Swami Atmarupananji Maharaj that he immediately uh, responded very warmly that no, you must come to Houston, and also we'll arrange your lectures also. Coming to Houston was not very much decided because of various reasons. One of the important reasons being that our Sharad Bhai was going back, he's going back to India in 12th. And logically, they were asking me, how do you have a zigzag journey? That is due to Sharad Bhai. Because from there I was supposed to go to Chicago, from Chicago to Boston and St. Louis and to New York. Houston was not on the cards. But then I had to come early because he's leaving for India, and one of the main attractions, as you all know, is meeting C.D. Desai, Chiman Bhai Desai, who has been a very extraordinary contributor to our activities of Baroda Center. Even before our Baroda Center was started, he visualized a temple coming up in Baroda, and he gave whatever income he had, everything he donated to Bellumat. So as and when the Bellumat, the center comes up in Baroda, that money will be utilized for temple. So that money is still pending, and we had some problems to land. We are getting it sorted out. So that's why I thought that I must meet C.D. Desai, because he is not able to come because of his poor health, quite aged. So that was one of the reasons why I had this one. But anyway, I am very happy, and I am grateful to Swami Atmarupananji that he has made this program, that again 11th also we will have a program here, and tomorrow and day after I am going to speak at other places. Sharad Bhai will be able to give the exact addresses and all that. But today Maharaj has told me to speak on man-making religion, a very wonderful subject, but a very vast subject. I would like to confine myself to up to what time we can go on?
Until 8:30.
8:30.
And then if there are any questions after.
Yeah, 8:30. I'll try to finish by 8:30. I'll start with a beautiful story of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda wrote something very interesting about thoughts for contemplation. And there he says, gives a setting. There is a temple, and so many people are going to the temple, but curiously enough, nobody is entering the temple, and nobody is going inside to have a vision of the real deity inside. And there is a huge deity outside with so many hands, so many mouths, so many feet, very big statue, very big deity. And all are giving their devotion, all are giving their salutations to this big deity. Nobody is going inside to pay respect to the real deity. So somebody asked, who is this deity? All are paying their respect to this deity and not going inside the real deity. Oh, don't you know the name? The name of this deity is popular custom. So our religion is confined to popular custom. Most of the time you will find how many yajnas have been done, how many times one has gone to temple, churches or mosques, what is the type of the tilak that you put on, the rosary and external signs and fasting. Most of the time, so many rituals. And now today is the New Year day for Gujaratis. So there will be Annakut. I thought it is 56 items. No, now it is increased. 108 items will be offered to the Lord. So many items will be offered. So Annakut. And so these are all external rituals in which we have got bogged down. Swami Vivekananda said what we want is man-making religion, man-making education, man-making ideas. And Swamiji told, my mission is man-making mission. This we have forgotten. So this is the subject, man-making religion is very important. Now, what is a man? The difference between animal and man. we must understand first. Our scriptures are given. Basically, religion is that which differentiates a man from an animal. That is religion. Ahar nidra bhay maitunancha सामान्य मेतत् पशुभि नराणाम धर्मो हि तेषाम अधिको विशेषः धर्मेण हीना पशुभि समाना. There are four things which are common between man and animal. What are the things common? Ahar, food; nidra, sleep; bhay, fear; maitunancha, reproduction. These are the four items which are common between man and animals. What is the difference? Difference is only one. While human beings can pursue religion and can transform themselves, whereas the animals cannot pursue religion. So it is religion which differentiates man from the animals. By the way, I must tell you, man making religion includes women making education also, women making religion also. Only there are two letters extra, W and O, but man is included already in woman. So, it is what we are talking about is human development. When we are talking about man making religion, it is about the human personality, about the human beings. So, but man making, what you are, is a phrase that includes woman making. So otherwise some feminist will put a rejoinder against me. What is this? You are talking about man making, why religion, why not woman making religion? So it is included. Now, what is a man? How it is different from animal? This is what we have told. It is really religion. If you ask any child, what is a man? Immediately he will reply, man is a social animal. Because that is how it has been taught. Man is a social animal. But Aristotle says, no, man is a political animal. Benjamin Franklin says, no, man is a tool-making animal. Alvin Toffler says, no, man is an economic animal, but it is all the time you will feel animal. After all, he is an animal. Either he is a political animal, or a tool-making animal, or an economic animal, or a social animal, but he is an animal. That is the Western concept. But what is Vedantic concept? That Vedantic concept was given by Swami Vivekananda at the first Parliament of World's Religion in Chicago on 19th September. 11th September is the real lecture that he gave, very brief, and that changed the whole history. So much so that the government of Illinois has declared 11th September as Vivekananda Day, to be observed as Vivekananda Day, because 11th September was that historical date. But he gave his lecture on Hinduism on 19th September. There he cited a beautiful shloka from the Shveta Upanishad. Shrunumantu vishve amritasya putraha aye dhamani divyani tastuhu vedahametam purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasa parastat tameva viditvat mritumeti nanya pantha vidyate naya. I have found the ancient one who is beyond all miseries. By knowing him alone, you shall be free from all miseries. And then Swami Vivekananda told all the Americans present there, let me, dear sisters and brothers, call you by this sweet name, Amritasa Putra. Vedanta does not recognize sin, it recognizes error, and the greatest error you are making when you call yourself a sinner. No, Vedanta does not want to call you sinners. So what you are, ye, the children of immortal bliss, holy and perfect beings, ye, Divinities are not sinners. It is a sin to call a man so. It is a standing label on human nature. Come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep. Your soul is immortal, spirits free, blessed and eternal. You are not matter. You are not bodies. Matter is a servant, not ye the servant of matter. That is the message Swami Vivekananda gave, that you are divine. You are the children of immortal bliss. That is real religion. And that is which makes a person from an animal into a human being, and then goes on evolving. And the evolution after the human stage is not only biological evolution. Even the modern scientists now agree, from amoeba to human being, it's a biological evolution. But later on, it is psychosocial evolution. They do not give the name spiritual, that doesn't matter. Psychosocial evolution in the human birth, and then go on evolving. A stage comes when humanity is transformed into divinity. So, from animal to human being, and from human being to divinity. And this transformation, the process of transformation from a human being, lowest stage, unto the divinity, that is what is the real role of religion. And so we call it spirituality, because religion has come to mean certain faith, belief system, certain rituals, certain forms, and all that. So this is the point that Swami Vivekananda made time and again, and pointed out the real nature of human being, that you are not sinner, you are not a weak person, and your real nature is divinity. This is different from the Western concept of a human being. What is that? He is a body-mind complex. A biological animal, a little more evolved biological animal, that's all. But no, the Vedantic concept is, it is not only body-mind complex, it has got a center of consciousness called Atman. Esha sarveshu bhuteshu gudo atma na prakashate drishyate tvagraya buddhya shukshmaya shukshmadarshini, says the Upanishad. Inside every human being, irrespective of caste, creed, color, religion, nationality, there is a center of consciousness. And what is its nature? Its nature is Satchit Ananda. Infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. That is the nature of that Atman. And that is beside each and every human being, irrespective of caste, creed, color, religion, nationality. That is the Vedantic concept of a human being. And the real role of religion is transforming this human being into a divine personality, making it, reaching its real birthright, that is infinite knowledge, infinite existence, infinite bliss. That is real religion. What we may call it spirituality, to differentiate it from only rituals. So Swami Vivekananda gave the gist of whole of this Vedanta in one paragraph of Raj Yoga. What is that? Each soul is potentially divine. The goal of human life is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines, dogmas, rituals, worships, temples, churches, mosques are but secondary details. So this is the gist of the whole of this one Swami Vivekananda gave. That each soul is potentially divine. Divine, but potentially divine. We do not have to import divinity from outside. It is already there, inherent, but not manifested. Why we are feeling weak? Why we are feeling miserable? Why we are not feeling why we are having lack of peace of mind? Only because we have not yet manifested that divinity. The moment we manifest that divinity, the moment we get that all that is our birthright. So each soul is potentially divine. The goal of human life is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature external and internal. And this can be done in 4 ways. Raj Yoga, that is Ashtanga Yoga. Patanjali Yoga Sutra says about eightfold steps. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi. Yama are 5, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Ahimsa. And Niyama are also 5, Shauch, Santosh, Tap, Swadhyaya, Ishwar, Pranidhan. So that is Raj Yoga. Mainly we can call a method of contemplation and meditation and culminating in Samadhi stage where you go beyond time, space and causation. That is Raj Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion, path of love towards God, path of repeating the mantra, prayers and all that. Then there is a path of knowledge where you try to find out your own reality by Shravan Manana Nididhyasana. Trying to know what is real nature of that supreme reality or the reality which is within me, and then try to argue it out, try to understand it better, and then meditating on that. Shravan Manididhyasana. Trying to know our own true nature. Who am I? That is Jnana Yoga. And fourth is Karma Yoga. Trying to convert work into worship. Whatever work we are trying to do, each and every work can be converted to worship. Now that is a great contribution of Swami Vivekananda to the modern age. Because we are all working. We have to work for various reasons. And we cannot, accepting a very, very absolute minority of the people, microscopic minority, most of the people have to live in the society, have to work in the society for earning bread and for various reasons. So, while working, can we manifest the divinity? That is the solution provided by Swami Vivekananda. And that is the real contribution of Swami Vivekananda to the modern society. And he also told, if you read the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Swamiji has done a lot of work in completely re-editing the whole complete works which will be now coming out. He has worked very hard for that. If you go through the complete works of Swami Vivekananda now in 9 volumes, the gist of that, find out very big thing. So many lectures, so many poems, so many conversations, so many letters. But then, fortunately, Swami Vivekananda himself has given the gist of his teachings in a beautiful letter to Sister Nivedita where he says, my ideal indeed can be put into a few brief words, and that is to preach unto mankind their divinity within and how to make it manifest in every moment of their life. That is very important. 2 steps. To preach unto mankind their divinity within. This is the first step. And to tell them how to make it manifest in every moment of life. Not giving up the work, not going to the Himalayas, not going to the forest. Living in the world, how to manifest the divinity. That is a special contribution of Swami Vivekananda. That is why Sister Nivedita writes in the introduction itself, this is the realization which makes Vivekananda the great preacher of karma, not as divorced from, but as expressing Jnana and Bhakti. To him the workshop, the farmyard, the laboratory are as true and fit scenes for meeting God with men as the door of a temple or the cell of a monk. That is the speciality, Swami Vivekananda. Karma Yoga. He brought this Karma Yoga into operation for the modern man because we cannot give up the karma, we cannot give up the work, how to convert work into worship. And that is why Sister Rita says, no difference henceforth between sacred and secular. To work is to worship, to labor is to pray, to renounce is to conquer. This is the realization which makes Vivekananda the great preacher of karma. This realization, this Karma Yoga is the bridge between the modern man and religion. So if we have to have man making religion, and that is the real religion. That is the religion that we are striving for, that we have to strive for. That is the religion that makes a human being into a divine being. A religion which helps a human being manifest its divinity. That is real religion. The rituals, Swami Vivekananda says in the last part of that paragraph, everything is secondary. It's not unimportant. It's not to be rejected, no. We have nothing to say against that, going to the temple, churches, mosque and trying to have fasting and other, but nothing, we are not against it. But they are not secondary. Primary thing is to manifest the divinity. And how do we know that we have manifested the divinity? Is there any thermometer? There are, barometer can give you pressure, thermometer can give you temperature. Is there any thermometer? How to know how religious one is or how much is manifested the divinity? How really religious one person is? Swami Vivekananda gives a very special type of thermometer. What does he say? He says, unselfishness is the test of religion. Unselfishness is the test of religion. Real test is this one. Just test unselfishness. A new type of definition. Where Swamiji says, in his book on Karma Yoga, he says, if a person has not read any single scripture or any single book on religion throughout his life, and a person has not entered any church, mosque or temple or gurudwara any time, he has not performed any single religious ritual, but yet, because of the good action that he has done in his life, he has come to a point where he is ready to sacrifice his whole life for the sake of serving others. He is the most religious person in the world. That type of statement can come only from the Swami Vivekananda. No other saint has given. In spite of being a religious person, he says, even if you are not religious, you are a religious person if you are following unselfishness. So it is unselfishness that takes the human being, transform themselves into divine beings. That is why this unselfishness, selfishness is that which make you from human being into Rakshasa, into demons. And unselfishness takes you from human being to the divine stage. This is what we have to remember. Bhartrihari, you must have heard the name of Bhartrihari. He has written many books. One of the important books that he has written is Niti Shatakam. There he says, there are 4 types of people in the society. What are these 4 people? 4 types. Ete Satpurusha Parartha Ghataka Swarthan Parityajye Samanyastu Parartham Udyam Abrata Swartha Avirodhena Ye Temi Manav Rakshasah Parahitam Swartha Dignanti Ye Dignanti Nirarthatam Parahitam Teke न जानी मैं. He says there are 4 types of people. What are the 4 types? Number 1, Sadpurusha, excellent human beings. What are they? They try to sacrifice their own life for serving humanity. Excellent human beings, Sadpurusha. Second, Samanya Manusha, ordinary human beings. They first try to do good to themselves, then they try to do good to others. Third, Manav Rakshasa. They are looking like human beings, but they are demons in human form. Manav Rakshasa, a new name has been given, Manav Rakshasa. Not Rakshasa, not Manav, Manav Rakshasa. Cloning of the two. Manav Rakshasa, demons in human beings. What do they do? For their small self-interest, they can do any amount of harm to others. And you find everywhere in the society today. For small self-interest, pharmacist can go to any level. Even if you die, doesn't matter, my business should go on. A doctor, even if you die, doesn't matter, you go to this one, but you give me some income. And even if not necessary, he will get the operation done in order to get the money. This is what you see every day. All types of, in all professions. These are all demons in the human form. 3 types. And 4 types he says, I can't give the name because they are worse than Manav Rakshasa. Teke na jani mahe. I can't give the name. I can give what do they do. 3rd type of people, with a small self-interest, they can do any amount of harm to others. And this 4th type, they are not getting any benefit, but they enjoy others' downfall. Some fire has broken out in somebody's house. Oh, very nice, very nice. But did you get some benefit? No, but his house is burning. I'm so happy. They enjoy at others' downfall. They enjoy at others' loss. These are worse than Rakshasas. At least Rakshasa are trying to do back to others for their small self-interest. These people, they are not having self-interest and yet they are enjoying others' downfall. They are worse than Banu Rakshasa. Teke na jani mein 4 type of people. These are the 4 types of people about whom Bhartiya is written. And now I have made the latest research, 5th type. Well, I can't give the name because 4th type Teke na jani mein hai. 5th type I can't give the name, but I can tell you what do they do. 4th type of people, they are not getting any benefit, but they enjoy others' downfall, others' loss. 5th type of people, they enjoy others' loss and others' downfall so much so, by harming themselves, they do harm to others. So, they will sit down in an aeroplane, strike with the World Tower, World Trade Center. I died, doesn't matter, but I have killed 5,000 people, I am so happy. Everywhere you find. Even this 5th type also. Harming themselves for harming others because they derive so much of benefit, so much joy in others' harm. There is a beautiful story also about a conch shell and all that, but I will not go into that because I have to finish. Sometime I may tell the story, but the story tells about this one, that even if I lose one eye, the neighbor should be killed. The neighbor should die. For that, I am ready to lose one eye, but the neighbor should die. So this is the 5th type. In our society today, 3rd, 4th and 5th type are in plenty. Samana Manushya, ordinary human beings are less. Excellent human beings are in microscopic minority. And that is why what we want is a man-making religion and not demon-making religion. That is why Swami Vivekananda said it is man-making religion that we want, it is man-making education that we want, it is man-making ideas that we want all around. So we have to, otherwise human society will be a society of brutes, animals. This we have to remember, that we are human beings and as a man we are separate from animals and we have to evolve. There is a beautiful book by Teilhard de Chardin. Teilhard de Chardin was a botanist by profession, but was a Christian father. But his books were not allowed to be published when he was alive because some of the principles that he narrated went against the teachings of Bible. But posthumously they were published. One of the wonderful books that he wrote, which was published posthumously, the name of the book is The Phenomena of Man. And there he takes up this question, this issue, what is the difference between a man and an animal? And somebody said intelligence. Then he said, not necessarily so. Supposing you have got some milk in the kitchen, next day morning you find cat has come and stolen the milk from the kitchen. So what you do, next day, you don't keep the milk in the kitchen, you keep it separate place, another place, you find next day morning, the cat has stolen the milk from there also. Who is more intelligent? So animals also have got intelligence. Dogs have got intelligence. Cows have got intelligence. Even the donkey, he may have less intelligence, but he has got intelligence. The story of a donkey was going and suddenly it slipped. So there was a lot of salt on his head. Salt went inside the water, so salt got. Then when he got himself up, oh, no weight. So it felt so nice. Next day again, it was going and found that the same rivulet has come. And you know how intelligent it is. It remembered, yesterday I slipped and so I became light-headed. So now, he deliberately slipped. Again fell down. So all the salt fell down. Again, now it becomes his habit. Every day, just go to the rivulet, make a dive, and then he becomes. Now that owner was observing. 2 days, 3 days, every day it is at this particular spot the fellow is sleeping. What is the matter? Then he observed it diving deliberately. Then he saw, this fellow thinks that he is more intelligent than me. I will tell him that he is a donkey, I am a human being. I am more intelligent. The next day what he do? He did not put salt, he put lot of cotton. And when it slipped, he fell down and the cotton he is not able to get up because cotton with water has become so heavy. The donkey said, I will now never die. Whatever it is, just a story. So donkey has also got intelligence, maybe less, but it has got intelligence. So every animal has got intelligence. Cat has got intelligence. Then what is the difference between man and animal? So Teilhard de Chardin says beautifully, the difference is this: while a man knows what he knows, an animal does not know what it knows. A man knows what he knows, an animal does not know what it knows. Cat knows how to steal the milk, but cat does not know whether I should have the knowledge of stealing the milk, whether it is good or bad for me. This power of discrimination, Vivek Buddhi, it is that differentiates a man from a human being. This is the gist of the crux of the whole thing. Vivek Buddhi, the power of discrimination which differentiates man from an animal. And the more the power of that discrimination, the greater is the person who is evolved. And the person who has got maximum of this power of discrimination, this Viveka, is Vivekananda. And that is why we worship him. That is why we worship Vivekananda, because he has got maximum of that Viveka. And why he got maximum of Viveka? Because when Sri Ramakrishna sent him to Mother Kali, he did not, Narendranath, he did not ask for money for which he had gone. He only asked, give me the power of discrimination. Give me Gyan, Bhakti, Vivek, Vairagya. Give me knowledge, give me devotion, give me Vairagya, dispassion, and give me Vivek, power of discrimination. That is why he had so much of power of discrimination that he had to adopt the name Vivekananda. Vivekananda. One whose Ananda, happiness, is in Viveka, discrimination. That is why Viveka, that is what is required. That differentiates man from an animal. That is the power of discrimination. So that is why Teilhard de Chardin says, this is the difference. While a man knows what he knows, an animal does not know what he knows. So this is a special prerogative of human beings. Special prerogative of human beings. This we have to remember. Then only we can understand what is the real man-making religion. What is real man and what is its destination of a human being and what is its climax that it wants to reach. Then that he wants to reach. Then only we will be able to say, yes, religion can do that. And that is the real role of religion. That will be called man-making religion. The third dimension which we are overlooking, the dimension that is the spiritual dimension. That is the dimension that Atman, we are taking the human being as only body-mind complex. No. We have to take, and now fortunately, so far Vedanta was telling about the third dimension. I'm very happy that the modern science has now come to the conclusion that yes, third dimension is also equally important. More important, in fact, that is the crux of the whole thing. So we're talking about IQ, intelligence quotient. In 1991, Daniel Goleman made a research and said, no, EQ is more important than IQ. What is EQ? Emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. And the latest discovery of the modern science is SQ, spiritual intelligence. Dana Zohar, she is a professor in Oxford University. She has written a book, the name of the book is SQ, Spiritual Intelligence, the Ultimate Intelligence, where she says neurologically, physiologically, biologically, psychologically, from every point of view there is a concluding evidence, there is something called SQ, which is the basis of both IQ and EQ. What is IQ? IQ will tell you how to play the game of life. What is EQ? EQ will tell you how to play the game of life under changed circumstances with changed strategies. And what is SQ? SQ will tell you whether to play the game of life at all or not. That is your choice. What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? Why we are on this earth? What is the ultimate aim? Where do we want to go? That is SQ. And Dana Zohar says, modern science also has discovered IQ is available with all the species, including the computers. EQ is available only with a few species. but SQ is available with only the human species. Now you find Indian scriptures have been telling that there are 8.4 millions of species. 8.4 millions of species. Out of these 8.4 millions of species, only human beings can have spirituality, can have self-knowledge, can have self-realization. But the modern science says no, it is not 8.4 million, it is 12.5 million. But modern science also says out of 12.5 millions of species, only human species can have SQ. So they are coming to the same conclusion. This development of SQ is really the man-making religion. Development of SQ is the really man-making religion. And that is the purpose of life. And that religion, that spirituality, which will bring us closer to that SQ, is the really man-making religion. Because that, the man's real dimension, the third dimension, the real dimension, the crux of the whole thing is served. Once that is served, IQ and EQ follows. Once that is served, happiness follows, peace follows. And you get back your true nature, which is infinite existence, knowledge and bliss absolute. So that is how we have to remember the speciality about man. Dr. Einstein says in his book, The World as I See It, he gives the real, what is the climax, what is the real purpose of human life? He says, the true value of a human being is determined primarily by the measure and the sense in which he has attained to liberation from the self. The true value of a human being is determined primarily by the measure and the sense in which he has attained to liberation from the self. And that is why this is I am quoting from the book, The World as I See It. And there is another book by Lincoln Barnett. The name of the book is Einstein and the Universe, in which he says, man has a unique capacity of transcending himself and perceiving himself in the act of perception. Man has a unique capacity of transcending himself and perceiving himself in the act of perception. This is a unique capacity, not with any other species. Transcending himself and perceiving himself in the act of perception. So Niels Bohr, a Nobel Prize physicist, says human beings are both spectators and actors simultaneously. You know, two actors, they are staging a drama. Okay? One is Duryodhana, one is Bhima. Now Bhima, he just tries very hard Duryodhana, and Duryodhana gets killed. That is the drama. Outwardly, it appears Bhima is giving a very good hit. But when Bhima is trying to hit the Duryodhana, he knows, I am playing the drama, I am playing the role of Bhima, he is playing the role of Duryodhana. In real sense, I am John and he is Abraham, and both are going to have a cup of coffee after 5 minutes when the screen is closed in the green room. So he doesn't forget that he is my friend. At the same time, he knows I am Bhima, but my real name is this. He is Duryodhana, but his real name is this. He doesn't forget it. So we can be actors and spectators in this great drama of life simultaneously. That is the speciality about human being. So Swami Vivekananda says, what we want is man-making religion. That which takes us to the divinity, which takes us to SQ, which takes us to our true nature, infinite knowledge, existence and bliss, which is our birthright. And for that, there are 4 methods: Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. Which method is good? That depends upon you. You take up whatever method suits you. But what method Swami Vivekananda has taken up? Swami Vivekananda has taken up all the four. So Romarola says Swami Vivekananda rode on all the four horses simultaneously. All the four yogas taken up. And Swami Vivekananda also says we want to have a integrated personality. If you want to have harmonious development of the personality, mix up all the four. And this mixing up all the four yogas has got its advantages. What happens when we try to practice one yoga in isolation of other three yogas, we sometimes get into difficulties. But when all the four yogas are simultaneously practiced, the difficulties are gone. Not only that, all the advantages are added up and you can reach the goal fika. For example, somebody is following Raj Yoga. Now, Swami Vivekananda is told in the introduction itself, one should not practice Raj Yoga without the guidance of a personal teacher. Otherwise, there is some danger. Sometimes people do not pay any heed to this advice, and then just out of enthusiasm, they go for many hours of meditation, particularly pranayama, kumbhaka, holding the breath. Sometimes there are hallucination and light and night visions, ending up in a mental hospital. So then, what is the solution? Okay, morning, evening, you meditate. But try to spend the whole day in serving others. Karma Yoga. Mix up Karma Yoga with Raj Yoga, then your possibility of ending up in a mental hospital is reduced. But when you go for Karma Yoga, what happens? When you do perform a karma, you do some good work, then you get admiration, you get appreciation, and then your ego is pumped up. So then you are again going against your main goal of life, of abolishing the false ego, going against it. Oh, don't you know how much work I have done? Oh, I did so much big relief work I did. I did so much of many things. Okay, but ultimately what happened? My ego is pumped up. So then what happens? You mix up Bhakti Yoga with that. I have not done it. It is because of the grace of the Lord that I could do so many things. Then that poison of Karma Yoga is gone. So mix up Bhakti Yoga with Karma Yoga. But when you go for Bhakti Yoga alone, you become, Swamiji says, sentimental nonsense. And then you become irrational and you just get yourself drowned in emotions. So mix up Jnana Yoga with Bhakti Yoga. Jnana Yoga is rational. When rationality comes, Bhakti Yoga will become more fruitful. But if you practice only Jnana Yoga, it is dry. So mix up Bhakti Yoga with that. So when we mix up all the four yogas, all the disadvantages of practicing individual yoga is gone and the advantages are added up. That is why how the monks and devotees of Ramakrishna order, how do they practice this combination of four yogas? Morning we have Mangalarti, prayer, that is Bhakti Yoga. Then we have meditation, that is Raj Yoga. Then we have Gita chanting from the slokas from the Bhagavad Gita or something like that is Jnana Yoga. The evening again we have Khandana Bhavabandhana, evening prayer, just now we had. Then some meditation, and Raj Yoga. And then there is some reading, just now we have a discourse of that, reading from scriptures, the gospel and all that is Jnana Yoga. And whole day, Karma Yoga. So Swami Vivekananda told for the modern age, for whatever reason, when the people are suffering so much, let us give more importance to Karma Yoga by serving humanity, serving the society which is the need of the hour. But that will not deter you from your main aim of Atmano Mokshartham. So he gave a new mantra, not only Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha. He added word Cha, and. So the basic purpose of human life, ultimate aim of human life, is to manifest the divinity while serving humanity, irrespective of caste, creed, color, religion, nationality, which is a mandate not only for the monks, but all the devotees of Ramakrishna order. Today we are all here. I am very happy that in spite of so many odds and my bad throat and just my little bit delayed coming and all that, everything, ultimately all is well that ends well. And I'm again grateful to Swami Atmarupananji for giving the opportunity. My prayers at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna Dev, Ma Sharda and Swami Vivekananda, may they bless us so that we may be able to practice these 4 yogas and we may be able to practice this real religion, man-making religion, and transform our lives into the divinity which is the real purpose of religion and real purpose of our human life. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.